Shocking encounter. Cop laughs at black woman's FBI badge. 2 minutes later, justice is served. Maya Johnson stood on the corner of Main Street, fingers trembling around her FBI badge. The warm afternoon sun cast elongated shadows as she prepared for a routine surveillance operation, yet a familiar unease crept into her chest. Her small-town diner, filled with the comforting aroma of coffee and pancakes, was worlds away from the crime-infested underbelly she now sought to infiltrate. Just as she steeled herself for the task at hand, Officer Tom Harris appeared, a smug smirk overshadowing his otherwise unremarkable features. "What do you know about law and order?" he mocked, his laughter ringing out like a judgment against her very existence. The sounds of the bustling diner, of children playing in the park, faded as humiliation swelled within her. Did he truly believe she was so naive, that she was merely the waitress who filled his coffee cups? Her heart raced, a conflicting tide of anger and dread pulling at her insides. She wanted to retort, to tell him of her purpose, yet doubt clouded her mind. Was she even worthy of that badge in this moment? As Officer Harris turned his back, her resolve faltered. The disappointment lingered in her mind like an unwelcome guest, teasing at her sense of identity. The weight of her duality flattened her spirit. Who was she really? Accumulation of sacrifices, dreams deferred, all wrapped in the shroud of a single mother striving for justice. Every day she fought to provide for her 2 children, shackled to 2 jobs just to keep the lights on. Yet here, in this moment, she second-guessed her allegiance to the law. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With a mix of humiliation and rising determination, she realized that clinging to an identity discounted by those sworn to protect the law wouldn't serve her mission. Marcos, the slain teenager whose image haunted her dreams, deserved justice, and she couldn't let Officer Harris's laughter bury that truth. She thought of her children, their laughter, their innocence, and that fragile light of hope that they were quickly losing in the toxic environment surrounding them. Deep breaths calmed her momentarily as her mentor, retired Detective Donald, flashed through her memory. He had faith in her abilities. He had seen her vigilant spirit in shadowed corners of the city. She gathered herself, understanding that sometimes the most profound power is achieved in stillness. That action would yield results if she remained steadfast. That night, she slipped through the unkempt streets, vulnerable yet fueled by a steely resolve, as she gathered whispers from families crushed under the weight of the drug ring's insidious reach. As she pieced together the mosaic of their stories, an undeniable force surged through her, a splash of resilience igniting her fraying spirit. Yet beneath that fierce armor lurked nagging doubts. Could she truly puzzle it all together without the help of law enforcement? But then, the fabric of her resolve strengthened, aching toward a showdown where internal fear wrestled with nascent courage. And as the tension swirled, her very next step loomed ahead, a confrontation with Officer Harris lingering like a storm in the distance, pushing her closer to an inevitable reckoning. Fear gnawed at her insides, questions tumbling together. Would she bring this house of cards crashing down, or would his laughter haunt her heart forever? In that moment, uncertainty intertwined with her purpose, raising the stakes of justice to an unbearable height. What would she sacrifice to reclaim not just her dignity, but the threaded trust shared with the community she'd sworn to protect? The next morning, Maya awoke to the muffled sounds of her children, a cacophony of playful shouts and feet thumping against the floor. The warmth of their laughter wrapped around her, yet the weight of her task loomed large over the brightness of the day. She took a deep breath, not just to inhale the day, but also to anchor herself to her purpose. The image of Officer Harris's derisive grin was still fresh, sharpening her focus and igniting her resolve. He didn't know who she really was, but today she would show him. Her heart raced as she prepared for her next steps, each choice fueling the fire within instead of dampening it. She slipped into her clothing, simple yet professional, every fabric assertion of her identity strengthening her. She made breakfast while plotting the day ahead, mentally mapping out the routes she would take to gather more information about the drug ring. She would play her part as both mother and agent with intention. The duality would be her strength. Before heading out, Maya glanced at the mirror, scrutinizing her own reflection. The defiance flickering in her eyes spoke volumes. Today, she would confront her fears not in isolation, but through strategic action. She reached for her badge and pinned it securely on her jacket, a fragment of pride injecting vigor into the morning. Her first stop was a neighborhood haunt for the local dealers, an abandoned warehouse that served as their unsuspecting haven. She approached with a heartbeat resonating the rhythm of purpose, observing the men loitering in a fog of smoke and bravado. Their swagger reminded her of countless moments wasted in fear, time she could no longer afford. There needed to be a shift. Maya! One of her contacts, a small-time informant named Ricky, caught her eye. With a hesitant wave, he beckoned her over, his posture awkward but hopeful. The budding recognition in his gaze sparked a familiar camaraderie. "Maya, what are you doing here? These guys don't like strangers." He leaned in closer, his voice barely above a whisper. Behind him, shadows shifted, suspicion threading through the air. "I'm not a stranger," she replied, firm yet calm. "I'm a friend looking for information. We need to focus on justice, Ricky. You know what they did to Marcos, right?" His features softened, the weight of fear suddenly eclipsed by concern. "Yeah, but they don't just hurt people. They threaten families, too. You gotta be careful." Each word wrapped around Maya's heart. It was another reminder that courage also meant navigating treacherous paths, ones where innocently getting involved could unravel lives. She clenched her jaw, the fear morphing into a protective instinct rather than retreat. "I know the risks, but I need your help. We need to gather evidence to take these guys down, and I can't do it alone." The air crackled with tension as she laid out her plan of action. His hesitation filled the gap between them like a chasm, but the burgeoning trust started to erode its edges. Slowly, he nodded, a flicker of determination lacing through his doubts. "All right, I'll see what I can do, but you gotta lay low." With a tentative agreement, they became accomplices in a game fraught with deception. For the first time, Maya felt herself wearing the mantle of her authority properly. It was she who initiated the conversation, and she who led them toward a purpose. With teamwork now in the mix, the absence of fear began to render strength instead. As the day moved on and exchanges were made in hushed corners, a profound sense of mission enveloped her. Days turned into weeks. Accumulating intel transformed her frustration into clarity. However, the specter of Officer Harris loomed, a constant reminder of lingering obstacles within the institution she was trying to navigate. Then late one night, a new revelation hit her. Through the whispers of her contacts, she learned of an upcoming exchange that could potentially expose the entire network. It was her chance to stand up, not just against the drug dealers, but also against the police force's complacency. The nerve gripped her. As she mulled over the implications, a realization thudded against the walls of her mind. She would not just confront Officer Harris, she would expose him and others like him for their complacency in the face of her community's suffering. Her hands shook with anticipation and fear. The moment had arrived to not just reclaim her dignity, but to shatter the chains of her invisibility. How she would accomplish this lay ahead. One decisive move would change everything. Would her resolve withstand the fallout? And would she finally earn the respect that had been doubted so often in her journey? As doubts clawed at her thoughts, she steeled herself. The stakes had reached a boiling point. And in the depths of her growing determination, a vision formed. The time had come to face Officer Harris. Would she do it head-on, armed with newfound knowledge and support? Or would she find herself cornered by fear once more? The sun set in a cascade of orange and purple hues, the fading light casting long shadows along the streets. Maya stepped out of her car, the rhythmic pulse of adrenaline coursing through her veins as she approached the meeting point she had arranged with Ricky. Tonight was pivotal. Everything hinged on this moment. With each step, doubt shadowed her mind, yet so did a potent sense of purpose. She understood the risks that accompanied taking a stand, not just for herself, but for those who had suffered under the yoke of corruption. What Davis had done to her, and to countless others, could no longer go unchecked. The fear that once paralyzed her now transformed into a fiery determination, bending her will toward resolution. Ricky appeared from the mist, his face partially veiled by twilight. The urgency in his eyes shone as he approached her. "You made it," he said, glancing around to ensure they were alone. His voice trembled but held an underlying note of resolve, as if he shared her fear, but was equally emboldened by their cause. "Maya, this exchange is bigger than we thought. The intel I gathered suggests they're moving something lethal tonight, something that could endanger not just us, but everyone in the area." Each word hung heavy in the air, the weight of their mission pressed upon them. "So what's the plan?" she asked, clenching her fists to suppress the anxiety bubbling just beneath her surface. "We gather what we can see and get out. I'll take photos and notes, but you'll need to stay alert. We can't afford any slip-ups." Nodding, Maya felt clarity settle over her thoughts like a fog lifting. "We'll expose Harris and the others. This time, it's not just about stopping them, it's about making sure they pay for what they've done." The seriousness of her tone ignited a spark in Ricky's eyes, and he nodded in solemn agreement. The warehouse loomed before them like a sleeping beast, its rusted exterior blending into the growing darkness. A cascade of muffled voices filtered through the thin walls, providing a soundtrack to the clandestine activity within. They crept closer, adrenaline stiffening their resolve. Every instinct told her to retreat, yet what lay across the threshold compelled her forward. As they edged toward an open window, Maya's heart thundered in her chest. The voices mingled with the low hum of machinery, the atmosphere thick with anticipation. With focused determination, she leaned in, readying herself to capture evidence of the transaction. Suddenly the door swung open, and a familiar figure emerged. Officer Harris, his swagger immediately recognizable against the backdrop of shady characters. Rage surged within her. She hadn't expected to see him here, partnering with the very criminals she sought to bring down. "Perfect timing," he sneered, his gaze igniting recognition. "Look what the wind blew in. You still playing pretend, Maya?" The scorn dripped from his words, igniting a firestorm of memories. The condescension, the doubt affecting her self-worth. But now, under threat of justice, the tide would turn. There was no room for her former self. This Maya had teeth, and she was ready to bite back. "I'm not pretending. I'm here to expose you," she shot back, her voice strong, despite the ghostly shadows of insecurity trying to creep in. He laughed, a jarring sound that cut through the air. "And how do you think that's going to happen? You think these men will listen to you? You're out of your league." But Maya had already moved beyond the confines of his expectations. This was her moment to assert her identity, sharpened by weeks of intel and resilience. While the men inside focused on their exchange, she seized the opportunity, listening intently. Time slowed, her mind racing ahead of the scene unfolding before her. Within seconds, Ricky captured photographs, scoping out quick exits. As her resolve fortified, she realized something profound. Confronting Harris wasn't about retaliation, It wasn't even just about the drug deals, but about reclaiming her agency. She took a step toward him, eyes blazing. "You've been complicit for far too long, Harris. Tonight it ends." The air thickened as tension coiled tightly between them. The shift was palpable. An awareness of impending confrontation hung like charged electricity. Just then, an unexpected sound erupted from within the warehouse, echoing through the night like a gunshot. Maya and Ricky exchanged frantic glances. Their time had run out. The moment to act had arrived. With decisive steps forward, Maya felt the gravity of her choice. This was no mere encounter. This was the beginning of a reckoning. Would her courage be enough to face the true danger lurking within those walls? And would the truth finally emerge? Or would she find herself ensnared in the very web she sought to unravel? As the echo of gunfire reverberated in her ears, a surge of adrenaline fueled Maya's instinct to leap into action. Ricky looked fraught with uncertainty, but her purpose was unwavering. The warehouse was no longer just a structure. It was a crucible in which her resolve would be tested and solidified. With a quick glance back at Ricky, she nodded, signaling that they needed to move, not just for themselves, but for those they aimed to protect. They slipped through the partially open window, careful not to make a sound. Inside, the chaotic bustle of activity highlighted the contrast between her composed determination and the disturbed atmosphere that seeped from the walls. Shadows danced across the room, their movements erratic and fleeting as figures scuttled about, unaware of the impending storm of justice brewing just outside their sight. She crouched low beside Ricky, who was already fumbling with his camera, eager to document the scene unfolding before them. The smell of grease and sweat heavy in the air pulled her focus tightly to the task at hand. This wasn't just about capturing evidence. It was about claiming her story, reclaiming her identity. Each photo snapped felt like a step away from the timid woman Harris had demeaned, each click a nail in the coffin of his power over her. Maya's heart raced as she scanned the room. A group of men was huddled close, the weight of their conversation carrying through the din of mechanical noise. Among them was Harris, leaning against a dusty crate, his arrogance palpable. "We can push this out by dawn," he said. "Once it's in circulation, no one will be able to trace it back here." A flare of anger ignited in Maya's chest, but she steeled herself, waiting for the right moment to act. The narrative was poised on a precipice. This was the turning point. She hadn't just come to observe. She was here to confront, to dismantle the very foundation of their actions. "Ricky," she whispered urgently, her eyes fixed on the vulnerable angle of Harris's stance, "I have a plan." "What are we doing?" he blurted, confusion betraying the fear plastered across his face. "Trust me," she said, her voice steady. She scanned the warehouse for anything that could serve as a distraction. A slam of a door. An outburst. Timing was crucial. With newfound clarity, Maya recalled the authorities' protocols she had studied, the years of training molding her not just into an agent, but into a leader unafraid to take calculated risks. She gestured for Ricky to keep taking photos, then moved towards an old, rusted metal barrel against the wall. "Just a little distraction," she murmured to herself, her fingers brushing the barrel's surface. Finding a loose piece, she gave it a sudden kick, sending it clattering across the floor. The metallic crash drew the attention of everyone in the room. "You hear that?" Harris called out, suddenly alert. The men turned their backs to the transaction, eyes darting toward the noise. "Now!" Maya hissed. As they turned, she lunged forward, heart hammering against her ribcage as she faced Harris head-on, her voice carrying strength she hadn't previously recognized in herself. "Officer, you're not going to get away with this. It ends tonight," she declared, the weight of her badge heavy against her chest. Harris's eyes widened in disbelief. Confusion mixing with recognition, and anger followed closely behind. You think you can stop us?" he spat, his bravado faltering in the face of her unwavering stance. Maya felt the eyes of the men on her, the tension fluctuating like the air before a thunderstorm. She invoked the power of her badge, her voice ringing clear. "I may be alone here, but the truth is on my side, and it will prevail." The moment held, and Ricky took the chance to step into the fray, backing her up with his phone still capturing every moment. Each flash felt like a cry for justice, a declaration against Harris's corruption, but a flicker of concern etched itself within her as chaos erupted. Would their combined courage be enough, or would it crumble under the weight of corruption? As the men lunged forward, Maya felt the thrilling jolt of doubt creep back in, a reminder of all she had endured, but a firmer resolve anchoring her feet to the ground. This was the moment of truth. Their outcome hinged on the next choice she would make. Would this lead to her liberation, or plunge them deeper into danger? The stakes had never felt so profoundly intense, and she knew she had to act decisively or risk losing everything. With Harris's men closing in, uncertainty blanketed the atmosphere, and a question propelled her actions forward. Would she step up when it mattered most, or would she become another casualty of complacency? And in that charged instant, as the air thickened with tension, clarity emerged. She had no intention of backing down now. With the clock racing against her resolve, Maya braced herself for what lay ahead, knowing that the coming moments would define not only her fate, but the fate of so many others in pursuit of justice. The air was a storm of adrenaline, swirling chaos punctuated by the clash of bodies and gruff voices. As the men surged toward her, Maya's instincts kicked into overdrive. Each rapid heartbeat echoed in her ears, a reminder that the time to act was now. Despite the uncertainty, something extraordinary surged within her, a powerful blend of resolve and hope. Her identity as an agent was finally confronting the darkness Harris embodied. Ducking down, she strategized. This was not just a face-off, it was a war where every exchange mattered. Maya recalled her training, the lessons that wove together technique with conviction. Surrounding her was not just a brawler's fight. This was about dismantling corrupt ideologies, a fight for truth leading to her very own redemption. "Ricky, keep filming. I need evidence of this operation," she commanded, her voice laser-focused. He wasn't just her ally, he was her backup, ensuring that what unfolded wouldn't just be a blur of confrontation. As they approached, one man, braver than the rest, lunged forward with a raised fist, fueled by arrogance and malice. In that frozen fraction of a second, Maya's body reacted even before her mind could elaborate the plan. She sidestepped, leaning into the momentum of the attack, twisting her wrist to catch his arm and divert his energy. This was the outcome of years spent training. She would not let intimidation dictate her next move. "Stand down!" she bellowed, the full weight of her authority surging through her words. It wasn't just a command, it was a testament to her strength. They hesitated, confusion etched upon their faces. For the fraction of a moment, they were disarmed. Harris's bravado faltered further, and Maya seized it. "You think your threats hold power over me?" she challenged, her voice unwavering. The internal debate within him was palpable, like the flicker before a match ignites. She could see doubt creeping in, an opening she had to exploit. Pushing forward, she engaged him further. "I've seen the faces of victims crushed by your greed. Your empire of corruption is built on lies." The conviction in her voice resonated, and she could see a crack in his confidence. As her words wrapped around the air thick with tension, the other men began to reflect her intensity. Ricky's flashes shone with clarity, capturing moments that transcended mere visuals. They were testimonies poised to speak volumes. Suddenly, one of the men hurled himself at Maya, but she pivoted, landing a sharp elbow directly to his throat, her movements precise and calculated. The shift in the atmosphere was electric. She wasn't just defending herself, but challenging their collective arrogance. "Gathering evidence, are we?" Harris shot back, scrambling to save face, but the chaos of doubt had taken root. In that moment, he was no longer untouchable. Yet even within the triumph of her maneuvers, doubt crept into her thoughts. Had she truly broken free from Harris's psychological hold? Or was she merely turning the tide for a brief moment? The nagging question pulled at her resolve, but there was no time for hesitation. With desperation lurking, Maya raised her badge defiantly, calling attention once more to the power it represented. "I'll make sure justice finds you. Your days are numbered." And in that instant, as the men rallied together to counter her boldness, she felt the space compress around them, time momentarily standing still. Surrounded by foes, Maya was acutely aware that the risk she took was monumental. To stand upon the precipice of fear and act was the measure of her growth. But the fight was far from over. She knew that true transformation lay ahead, as the shadows from her past threatened once again to consume her. With her heart racing, Maya prepared for the oncoming wave, fully aware that her next choice could bring her to the brink of justice or plunge her into the abyss of despair. The question burned bright within her. A deeper challenge awaited. Could she turn her budding strength into unwavering conviction as the battle intensified, or would the ghosts of the past threaten to unravel her newfound identity? The air crackled with tension, each footfall from the advancing men echoing like thunder in Maya's ears. As they circled, lunging and retreating, there was no time to waver. Reflexes and instincts collided in a symphony of calculated motions. She drilled down, focusing, zeroing in on the intent behind each aggressive stance. These weren't just adversaries, they were embodiments of a system that thrived on fear. With the pulse of urgency coursing through her, the urgency shifted her resolve into a high gear. Maya could feel her muscles tighten, a reality check every time she glanced at Ricky's unwavering focus behind the camera. Evidence was paramount. Each scuffle captured was a testament not only to her mission, but to the victims they had yet to serve. One of the men lunged forward again, this time more brazen, emboldened by the apparent chaos. Maya shifted downward, her body coiling like a spring ready to unleash. Instead of meeting him directly, she leveraged his force, twisting him past, sending a surge of adrenaline through her veins. "Back off!" Maya shouted, her voice cutting through the din. Her authority hung in the air like a challenge. Subconsciously, she found herself drawing power from the badge at her waist, a talisman of her commitment to justice. It was a necessary mantle that instructed her to wield her identity as a shield, but she knew it also summoned the ghosts of past decisions. Circled, the men hesitated, uncertainty flickered. Harris, the architect behind this thorny breeding ground of corruption, was visibly shaken now. She seized that glance of uncertainty, each word she hurled at them fortified with the weight of countless victims they had trampled over. "Your empire will crumble," she stated, the fervor coiling in her throat, demanding to be heard. Each syllable was pronounced with the intent of not just confrontation, but a demand for recognition, her recognition. Harris recoiled, desperation warping his features. Yet, in the instant before he could respond, another man surged forward, this time swinging wildly with reckless abandon. Maya sidestepped. A fluid motion she executed without a second thought, landing a jab under his ribcage. The impact sent him sprawling back, but the action was accompanied by an unsettling tremor of self-doubt. Every strike echoed in the recesses of her mind. Déjà vu swarming around her, each confrontation seemed to peel layers off her confidence. They backed her into a corner. Their eyes were filled with the grotesque enjoyment of hunting. She could almost hear Harris's mocking laughter as they descended. The doubt began to blur her vision. The question loomed ominously. Was this platform truly hers, or had she merely borrowed strength from a fleeting moment of courage? Breathing heavy, Maya pushed the thought aside. With each swing deflected, however, Maya felt glimpses of power returning. Her muscles were stronger this time, fortified by a burning desire to prove something to herself, to discern between fear and the necessary ferocity she now possessed. "Record this, Ricky. This isn't just a fight," she shouted, and that was it. She could feel it solidifying into something real. This wasn't just about her. It was about everyone dragged down by the web of Harris's deceit. Just as the stakes were dire, the hot breath of uncertainty left her momentarily frozen. Would her newly found strength hold? The sapphire of her badge gleamed under the harsh light, a symbol of her resolve. She straightened herself, standing at the precipice of something bigger than herself. And then, in an instant, the confrontation escalated. Harris charged forward, rage palpable, and Maya readied herself for the violent crescendo about to unfold. An impending clash tugged at her, the trepidation stirring within her heart. This would be the moment her resolve would either shatter or stay true. As Harris's fist swung, she felt the air shift, a visceral premonition deep within, whispering that the real battle lay not just with him, but within her. Could she harness the chaos and emerge unscathed, or would the fractures of her past dictate her downfall? Now, with adrenaline brimming and shadows lurking, the moment to define her future stood before her, her choice becoming not just a fight, but a reckoning. Maya braced herself as Harris's fist cut through the air, a direct assault aimed not just at her body, but at the very foundations of her newly rediscovered identity. In that split second, the cacophony around her blurred. Time dilated, allowing her to dissect the moment with agonizing clarity. Her instincts kicked in, each breath she took teetering on the edge of raw necessity. This wasn't merely about physical confrontation. It was an invocation of every decision she had ever made as a police officer. The years of training, the sleepless nights questioning her commitment, the moments witnessed in silence, all converged into this singular clash. Maya ducked just in time, feeling the rush of wind as Harris's fist missed its target. The physical close call jolted her. There was no room for doubts now. She pivoted, shifting her weight, and used Harris's momentum against him. Her elbow struck the side of his face in a crisp, deliberate motion, channeling newfound determination into every strike. Ricky captured it all. The movement, the intensity, each impact reverberating through the footage he was shooting. The thrilled realization that they would emerge from this moment with proof, tangible evidence of corruption, invigorated her. With every adrenaline-fueled clash, she felt the weight of others, silent, unheard voices, urge her to push harder, to dig deeper. But Harris wasn't done. Enraged, he swiveled back, his fury igniting a chaotic desperation. For a moment, Maya felt dread, hovering like a spectre at her shoulder. Had she unleashed something she couldn't control? Did she summon powers within herself too dangerous to handle? Just as these thoughts threatened to swallow her resolve, she confronted them with newfound clarity. This wasn't chaos. It was a crucible, a test of her willingness to endure and adapt. "Come on, let's finish this!" Harris spat, desperation marred by his evident fear. Each word sliced through the fog of uncertainty, igniting a fire within her. The challenge lay not in overpowering him physically, but in asserting her place within the narrative. Maya squared her shoulders, summoning every ounce of strength. "This ends today, Harris." The words broke free, a powerful declaration of intent. No longer was she merely responding to aggression, she was rewriting the terms of engagement. The stakes rose, and in that moment of clarity, she saw beyond the fray. This fight was both literal and metaphorical, a manifestation of the struggle against the systemic abuse she had chosen to confront. As she wound her arm for another strike, a sudden movement caught her attention. A flicker of a shadow detached from the crowd, someone lurking outside the immediate chaos. It nagged at her instincts. Her eyes darted momentarily, and the hesitation was palpable. The external world crashed against her newfound determination, trying to siphon her focus. Could she afford a moment's distraction? "Maya!" Ricky shouted, urgency snapping her attention back. But it was too late. In that instant, Harris lunged once more. The impact was unlike anything she had experienced before. It knocked the wind from her, not just from his fist, but also from the stark realization that there were deeper plots at play, shadows extending beyond the immediate confrontation. The dimly lit alley became an echo chamber, reverberating the depth of her journey, and she grappled with the reality that the battle extended beyond personal strength and survival. The sensation of suffocating uncertainty swirled as revelation struck. Her confrontation with Harris was merely the tip of a much larger iceberg. What lay beneath that surface? What other revelations awaited her in the darkness? Even as she fought, another truth was emerging, the understanding that real power came from within, and perhaps the most critical battle was still ahead. With this newfound resolve, she dug deep, gearing for an impending wave of confrontation that was not limited to the man before her. The bleak shadows peering into her world were ever present, and she was about to confront what others feared to touch. Just when the complexities of her struggle became palpable, a sudden sound broke through, an unexpected intrusion that could change the whole tableau. A siren in the distance, signaling either reinforcements or the chaotic end of the street justice she dared to demand. Would this siren bear assistance or further entrapment? The moment of truth loomed once more, ready to redefine her fight against the shadows. The siren wailed, slicing through the tension like a knife. Maya's heart raced, a dual rhythm of adrenaline and dread. The sound echoed ominously, threatening to drown out her resolve, but she pushed back against the rising tide of panic. She couldn't afford to lose focus. She had already seen too many good officers crushed beneath the weight of bureaucracy and corruption. Harris, momentarily stunned by the uncertainty surrounding them, took a shaky step back. His expression shifted. Fear crept in as he perceived the looming threat beyond their confrontation. Maya's instincts flared, seizing the moment. This wasn't just a brawl, it was a defining stand against the very essence of what had plagued her career. She could feel the spectre of doubt recede as narrow clarity emerged, fueled by the knowledge that she was standing against something larger than herself. "Stay focused," she thought, channeling her energy inward. The chaos stretched out before her, but her priorities crystallized. With every calculated breath, she congealed purpose behind her fists. The siren wasn't just an interruption. It presented a new opportunity. Harris was cornered, and she would not let him slip through her fingers again. With a deliberate movement, she sidestepped, pivoting her body to avoid another wild swing from him. Her elbow caught him flush in the gut as she engaged with more agility than brute force, utilizing the training worn into her muscle memory. Harris grunted, but the pain was nothing compared to the deep-rooted anger she felt surging from within. But in the midst of the chaos, a flicker of a thought surfaced. What if this confrontation revealed something beyond her raw physicality? She had been frequently underestimated, not only for her gender, but for her very identity. Was this altercation the vindication she sought, or was there a clue within the shadows around her? As she wheeled back, preparing for the next encounter, her mind raced. Could she harness the camera's lens as a weapon? The record of her struggle could expose so much more. It wouldn't only serve to document this fight, but could be pivotal evidence to unearth deeper systemic issues. "Ricky!" she shouted, summoning him through the tumult. He needed to stay close, capturing every moment. "Maya!" he called back, frantically adjusting the focus as he struggled to maintain his position in the chaos. "I'm getting this. Keep going!" Yet even as she fought, another intuition prodded her, the same whisper she had heard earlier. Something sinister lurked just out of sight. Was it the shadow that had captured her attention, or perhaps something deeper embedded within the fabric of the city itself? Had she stumbled into a trap not solely meant for her, but one that went beyond her personal vendetta against Harris? The din of police sirens surged closer, and as she peered into the shifting shadows around them, she found herself at a crossroads. The nature of her confrontation quickly transformed. Now she wasn't just battling Harris, but an unseen network that threatened everything she had fought for. A sudden realization coursed through her. She needed to shift the narrative, to play her part not just as a combatant, but as a detective unraveling a conspiracy. "You don't know what you've started, Harris," she taunted, searching for the chink in his armor. As her words echoed into the darkness, Harris's composure cracked further. His eyes darted toward the alley entrance, the police now visible in the distance. His look betrayed a mix of calculation and panic. The instability of his power was flickering, just as hers had rekindled, and yet a judgment loomed over her. Was she ready to move beyond this battle and dive deeper into obscured truths? With the cacophony of sirens approaching, she felt the empowerment swell within her. But would it drive her towards clarity, or unleash a flood of more violent revelations yet unseen? In that moment, as he lunged again in desperation, Maya realized something vital, that this confrontation might be her launching point into a world of corruption that required not just one person's courage, but the persistent pursuit of the truth. As Harris stumbled back, feet encumbered by both fear and guilt, Maya readied herself. She would expose the darkness, and this was just the beginning. The sirens crescendoed, the festering undercurrent of the city now teetering on the brink. If she'd only started to unravel the truth, what else awaited her in the shadows? It was time to confront not just Harris, but the looming shadow of the truth that begged to be unveiled. The moment of profound reckoning had arrived, and she was more than ready to seize it. Harris stumbled back, caught between the harsh reality of Maya's fierce determination and the unrelenting sound of the police sirens tearing through the air. In that brief moment of distraction, Maya's resolve crystallized further. The weight of the imminent confrontation lifted her spirits, reminding her of every sacrifice she'd made to climb the ranks despite the setbacks. This wasn't merely a physical altercation. It was the culmination of years of frustration and perseverance. "Time to elevate this," she muttered to herself, thinking of how she could transform her personal battle into an exposition of the systemic failures she had witnessed time and again. She had seen too many officers fall prey to the very corruption she was now staring down. It was time to document not just her fight, but the rot that festered within the department. Maya could sense that Harris was growing weary as the situation escalated. She tightened her grip, preparing herself for the next series of blows. Each moment was a tangle of choice and consequence, where every decision could tip the balance toward justice or chaos. As the police made their final approach, she felt a fierce surge of determination. This was no longer just about her. This was about every officer who felt powerless against the tide of corruption and incompetence. But her thoughts were interrupted by the jarring fact that her own camera was just out of reach. Could its absence hinder her fight? She had always believed in the dual powers of physical confrontation and strategic maneuvering. A sudden image flashed in her mind. Her justice, once confined to her fists, could now be expressed through media, the camera capturing every moment, every truth. "Ricky, keep that lens steady," she shouted, trusting her partner to understand the stakes. "Got it, Maya," he yelled back, acutely aware that the stakes were rising, both for her and the video that could potentially redraw the lines of accountability. As Harris regrouped, his eyes narrowed, assessing her not just as an opponent, but as a threat to his very existence. His fear slowly morphed into rage, a volatile combination that both concerned and invigorated her. How desperate was he becoming? With every punch she threw, there was a chance to dismantle a narrative far larger than their fight. The adrenaline coursing through her veins was electric, surfacing the hidden competencies in her once muted voice. Her emotions were taut, but clarity emerged amidst the chaos. Maya feared the momentary silence that followed Harris's ferocity, for it felt like the calm before a storm. But this time, she would not buckle under pressure. Instead, she would channel that anxiety into a focused attack that might just offer the shift she had envisioned. As Harris lunged again, she expertly sidestepped, her mind racing. This would be the pivotal moment. She could either choose to knock him out or plant the seed of his undoing. She noted every detail, the tremor in his hands, the perspiration on his brow, the cornering tension in his shoulders, and made a choice. "Your time is up, Harris," she declared, stepping forward not just to fight, but to expose the cracks in his authority. "It's time everyone sees who you really are." An ominous smile crept onto his face as he realized the shift happening within her. She could feel the liberation that came from pledging herself to truth. Would it be her own defeat, or the dawning of something far greater than the both of them? The police were mere moments away now, sirens screaming, lights swirling. This was it, the moment of truth, where confrontation met clarity. But in the shadow of that revelation loomed a greater mystery, lurking just on the periphery of the fight. Was there more to uncover? What hidden truths would her newfound tenacity expose? As she braced herself for the unfolding chaos, Maya felt both thrilled and terrified. Though the fight wasn't over, she sensed the chaos around her wouldn't just reshape her career, it could redefine her very identity. Would she emerge victorious, or would the darkness consume her? As her fists clenched tighter, she caught a glimmer of something more elusive. Could this confrontation also lead her to the core of the conspiracy waiting to break free? The walls were closing in, and she could feel the weight of her quest for truth, propelling her forward into the unknown. In the chaos of adrenaline and urgency, Maya's world crystallized into sharp focus. Harris's men surged around her, but the looming sirens painted a clear divide between her world of truth and the murky shadows of corruption. As she stood steadfast, the air thickened with expectation. This was not just a fight for justice, it was a fight for recognition. Maya remembered every sacrifice that had led her to this moment. The ridicule, the underestimates, and the countless nights spent questioning her decisions flooded back, only to be transformed into a steady resolve. She was more than just a badge on a woman. She was a force that would no longer be ignored. "Officer Harris," she declared, her voice slicing through the din. He turned, surprised by her confidence. "Your reign of manipulation stops here. You'll face justice for the people you've wronged." The muscles in Harris's jaw tightened, and something shifted in his demeanor. Fear slipped into the cracks of his bravado. At that instant, the sirens grew closer, igniting a spark of urgency within him. The realization that the walls of his fortress were beginning to crumble brought an unfamiliar excitement to Maya. She was standing in her strength, empowered by the resolve to reveal the truth buried within layers of deception. As the police lights illuminated the alley, she felt a familiar weight. The badge affixed to her chest was more than a symbol of authority. It was a reflection of her journey. Maya recalled the faces of those victimized by Watts's drug ring, individuals whose stories she had gathered with the hopes of bringing light to injustice. Every one of those souls rested lightly on her shoulders, urging her onward. "Get behind me, Ricky!" she yelled, her protective instincts kicking in. He had played a vital role in unraveling the truth, and she would ensure he remained safe. Together, they bore witness to the imminent arrival of the police. She felt the ground shift, inching closer to a much-deserved reckoning. In a last-ditch effort to hold on to his waning authority, Harris thrust forward, desperation fueling his actions. But she was ready. Channeling her training and the steely resolve that had brought her this far, she sidestepped his reckless lunge effortlessly. As he collided against the nearby wall, the impact reverberated, reflecting the shift in power dynamics. "You do not get to decide how this ends," Maya retaliated, her voice full of conviction. With the flashing lights painting their surroundings in an eclectic rhythm, she turned her attention toward the entrance, where uniformed officers were streaming in to assess the situation. The police observers quickly assessed the scene, eyes darting between Harris and Maya. Recognizing her, they stepped forward. "What's going on here?" they called out, their faces painted with a mixture of confusion and recognition. "This man has been complicit in a drug ring that has plagued this community for far too long," Maya asserted, gesturing emphatically toward Harris. "And I have the evidence to prove it." Harris's bravado vanished, morphing into a mask of wide-eyed fear. The moment slid to a pause. The air thickened, pregnant with uncertainty, as the police began to process her words. Now, with that single act, she felt freedom course through her veins. She would not only reclaim her dignity, but elevate her cause to bring accountability to the one who had belittled her. "Maya!" A familiar voice broke through, and she turned to see one of her former colleagues, Detective Wright. He had always endorsed her potential, and seeing his supportive presence ignited a fresh swell of confidence. "I had a feeling it had come to this. We've got your back." The tide was irrevocably shifting, emboldened by her commitment. Heart-pounding, she experienced a rush of fullness. This was her moment, a convergence of all she had fought for. Her voice steadied. "I gathered evidence over the last months. You need to check Ricky's footage. It confirms Harris's involvement and lays bare the web of deceit within your ranks." As the police officers moved forward to apprehend Harris, a sense of approval swept through them. One by one, they reviewed Ricky's recordings, each frame illuminating the extent of Harris's manipulation and the drug activities he had concealed. In that moment, Maya's status shifted. No longer the unacknowledged officer, she transformed into a beacon of justice that resonated throughout the precinct. Through the chaos, an important realization solidified within Maya. She had sourced her strength from pain, channeling it into perseverance. Her journey had torn down those who underestimated her. She had proven her capability against the tide of doubt. "I stand for those who have lost their voices," Maya declared, locking eyes with one of the officers. "Today is the day we move towards accountability and transparency, and it starts here." Maya witnessed an array of reactions from her colleagues. Curiosity morphed into recognition, and with it, solidarity. In being unyielding, she had inspired others to rise alongside her. "Let's get this sorted out now," Officer Wright commanded, signaling for reinforcements. As they placed Harris in cuffs, a deep satisfaction washed over Maya. In time, she knew they would unravel the layers of corruption that plagued their community. She understood that she had carved a significant space for herself within the precinct, an anchor for change rooted in her transformation. There she stood, badge gleaming in triumph, with a future undeniably brighter than before. She was no longer just the officer who faced ridicule, but the force of justice delivering much-needed retribution. Maya's growth culminated in that victorious conclusion, where she felt fortified not by accolades or applause, but by the profound understanding that her authenticity and perseverance had championed the truth. Wickedness would falter against the unwavering light she had summoned within, and she was ready to take her position as a catalyst for change, paving the way for others who would follow in her footsteps. You need to subscribe now to keep pace with these unfolding stories. Today's truth demanded it. Leave a like now, because every click feeds the algorithm, pushing these crucial narratives forward. Comment your thoughts on today's empowering conclusion and predictions for what lies ahead. And don't wait one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how courage and truth redefine the battle for justice.